He has been involved in the state programs for education, international programs. He's one of the leading lights for education reform in this country. I'm so pleased that you've joined us this morning. And Dr. Samels, as you've said, we live in the Athens of higher education, but Athens also presented lots of challenges. Tell us about those.
Indeed. You all know that WBZ has polls, and so I'd like to do a little poll this morning. How many of you attended Harvard? Could you raise your hand? How about Boston College? Nice. What about UMass Boston? Okay, for those of you who did not attend Harvard, BC, or UMass Boston, would you raise your hand? I see. I see. I see. So I got your attention. You know, we're in Boston. There are 50 colleges and universities in Greater Boston. There are 130 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The diversity of choice is one of the unique, and the reason why is I let Leslie in the door with everybody else, because Leslie's situation is way different than Harvard or BC or UMass. Leslie has to cross-subsidize its full-time students. It can't be always needs blind. It doesn't have billions of dollars of endowment. It doesn't have the economies of scale of 25,000 or 30,000 students. And so as we come to this conversation, Joe's advice about figure out the student we're serving, that's really, really important. Well, the good news is that competition has never been fiercer. That means the discount rates have gone up. That's the good news. Because parents are asking sophisticated questions like, how long will it take Sally or Johnny to graduate? And what's the payback going to be in terms of their career? What's the graduate and professional school acceptance rates? People are asking questions that they didn't ask. And higher education is an expensive enterprise. Why? It's not widgets. We're trying to prepare well-educated citizens of the world. And today, competition is fierce for jobs. So as we look around the room, for most of you, today is about building a sustainable university. And to do that, we need to keep an eye on some troubling factors. I said the good news is that it's very competitive and you can cut deals with colleges. But the bad news is that there's a gap. For the last 25 years, the cost of living has gone up about 2.9 to 3.1%. The annual average increase, at least in the independent sector, has been 5.9 to 6.1%. That's a gap every year. I've got kids 13 and 15, which at 62 years old should get a standing ovation, even here today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And my tuition bill for Gabrielle and Max was $71,000 this year. And the schools that they go to are the best schools in the world. Well, let me tell you something. I want to talk about my neighbor. My neighbors decided that they'd like to go to Leslie. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to go to Mass Bay Community College. They're going to go there for 2 years, and they're going to reduce their debt load by over $100,000. And the reason why they're going to do that is because they're going to get the leverage out of a fully accredited 2-year program and get the world class out of a Leslie program. And that is the light. The darkness is that default rates are doubling. Over the last 10 years, we went from low single digits towards double digits again. What does that mean? I don't know. We've gone from 4.4% probably to 9-something%. That's a very, very disturbing number. Because today, when kids drop out of college, do you know what the #1 factor is? Debt load. Beware of these loans. Beware of the loans. No matter how low cost the interest is, you've got to do an ROI, return on investment, or an ROL, return on learning, and try to figure out how they're going to pay it back. If you graduate with $25,000 debt load, you're in good shape. That's why I think most of the people on this podium can hold their heads high. But when you're graduating with $85,000 debt load, and you're moving into a $42,000 job, that's a problem in terms of starting a family and buying a home. So today, it's for all of you, like Leslie. And I'd like to get to the first question from the audience, Anthony.
You know, we all would. And we have somebody all prepared to do that. We are pleased to welcome the head of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, who wants to ask the first question this morning.
Thank you. My name is Steve Panagiotakis. I'm a state senator, but I'm also a father of a 15 and 13-year-old, so I'm very, very interested in today's discussion. Before I get started, I'd like to thank WBZ Radio for annually hosting this. This is very, very productive for all of us. I was very encouraged to hear the Needs Blind type of program that's at Harvard, my alma mater. I don't think my father, 32 years ago, was an airplane mechanic for TWA. My mother didn't work, but he was able to finance it. I don't know if I could do that with my wife and I both working today, other than the program that you have there for my two daughters. I talked to my dad the other day. It was funny. He was convalescing from a broken leg. And he said to me, you know, I'm making my last payment on your loan for college. 32 years later. And I was saying, why didn't you say something to me? I would have taken care of it. He said, you know what? No, that's my responsibility. And for all of us that are here that are parents, we know that's our responsibility. Responsibility to our children, but also a responsibility to our country. To make sure that our kids are going to be as productive and educated as we possibly can get them so that we can be competitive globally. But as I look out there, I'm talking to constituents, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of sticker shock when they hear every year when the new tuitions and room and board and fees come out. And we look out and we see that the wealthy, for the most part, will be able to afford it. The low income, there's a lot of programs for them with little of loans or debt afterwards. But it's that middle class that is really going to bear the brunt of it. And as I said, most of us in the middle class know that this is, other than buying our house, it's probably our second most or expensive investment that we'll make for our family. And we want to make sure that we do it right. And we want to make sure that our children are going to get the best education possible. So what I would ask from the panel, and I don't know if you'll be able to do this, if you could have some examples. In other words, a family that makes $80,000 a year, what does that look like for the student and for the family going to your institution? And you might not have them today, but those examples would give a lot of us the information that we need in making decisions early on in the process. Thank you.
Bill, would you like to start?
Just take a quick run. You were born about 30 years too soon. Because today, of course, it's really very, very different at Harvard. And our answer is very simple. You know, at $80,000 a year family income, first of all, you wouldn't have to take out loans. You'd have to work 10 or 12 hours a week. Probably cost your family about $5,000 or $6,000 a year to go to Harvard. So a totally different situation. But we are fortunate, as any number of people said, to have the kind of resources we have. On the other hand, you know, I have to say I'm really thrilled with the leadership at Harvard, Drew Faust, our president, and Mike Smith, the dean of our faculty, for having such a firm commitment to financial aid even at this difficult time. It's a tough time for every institution to come forward. But there are, I'll let the others go through, but it's a very good time in lots of ways, though, because I think the real issue is you figure out what the right match is, and I think, you know, whatever college it is, they'll figure out a way to make it work for you.
John?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the common questions is probably on everybody's minds here this morning. And I think maybe to just turn it around a little bit, it's sort of, at what point does your income go so high that you're not going to be eligible for any kind of financial aid? And unfortunately, there's no simple answer to that question because it is an income-driven formula, it's an asset-driven formula, and a couple of people have alluded to the fact that it depends greatly on the number of children in college at the same time. I was talking to our financial aid director earlier in the week, Bernie Picala, who's been on this program in the past. He talked to me about a family right now at Boston College whose income is about $300,000 right now. There are 3 students in college, one of them at Boston College. That family qualifies for need-based aid at Boston College. So there's no one-size-fits-all, one easy answer, but we are considering all of those variables and trying to work with families and trying to make it an affordable prospect.
What about the UMass system, Liliana?
I think that what we've tried to do is maintain tuition, keep tuition as low as possible, and continue to provide opportunities for families. As I said, merit-based is still an option for those families who may be coming in, and with students who are at, the 85,000 are coming in with that. As John has already said, they're going to apply, they're going to receive some aid, and we're going to try to package the best deal possible. We're still a little under $11,000 a year at UMass Boston. The others may be, Amherst may be a little higher, but we are still committed to trying to provide the quality education at the university, and we will look at packaging them that will include merit opportunities, will include need-based, will include loans. The federal government is setting these formulas. We as institutions are required to follow them. So the estimated family contribution is not going to change from institution to institution when families decide to shop around. So that is the figure that they're going to have to keep in mind and the figure that they're going to have to cover.
Dr. Moore?
At Leslie, between 35 and 40% of the students at the undergraduate level are first generation in college. The only way you can get that percentage and have an accessible institution is if you've got a financial aid process that makes that possible. Average family income in this country is $52,000 and going down. So at a place like Leslie, I've been in the public sector for most of my life until I came to Leslie. It's where the issues of access were dominant. So at Leslie, what we've done is we've packaged the financial aid where the tuition price, for instance, could be discounted anywhere between 30 and 50% based upon need and merit that can bring it down. And then you can get the other forms of aid that kick in there, whether it's federal, state, work, loans. So the issue is how do we make that type of education genuinely affordable, not only to middle-class families, but to working families who may not be at the middle-class range. If you want a truly diverse student body, and we're going to address the issues of the changing demographics in this country and what that represents, institutions such as Leslie have to be serious about that so that when you actually run the numbers, as the senator asked, families look at it and they see that they can do that.
Dr. Samels?
Steve and Liliana, how much are the fees for a kid to go out, let's say, to UMass Amherst? I'm getting the impression that the fees are almost as high as the tuition. Remember I said watch out for the loans? Watch out for the fees. Because the little story that hasn't been told is that at UMass, unfortunately, in order to maintain quality, because of the cuts in state appropriations, they've had to offset that with charges and fees. And I'm as responsible as anybody else. I was a former state comptroller and Regents General Counsel. I signed it. Because if I hadn't, we wouldn't have a first-class public system today. Question for Bill and for John. At Harvard, what is the selectivity admissions? Out of 100 students, how many do you accept?
This year it'll probably be around 7%.
And at BC?
30%.
I'm here for the other percent, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about?
I wanted Liliana to answer your question as well, and that is about fees. How have fees then been a percentage of the cost for families? How has that grown?
Fees are definitely larger.